Hey, I was hoping you'd be back because we've got some plant chores to do. So if you've got your chores, whatever you're doing, let's do it together because I've got to get stuff done and I need some company, and I'm glad that you decided to join me. I have some new plants that joined my collection. I have a video about it by now. It's already out on the channel. If you haven't seen that, you can check out the whole video around here. There are some new plants that I got and I'll be repotting some of them today. I'm not going to babble too much because there's too much to do. The first one on the docket is my Philodendron Micans. I got this plant like I said, a week and a half ago. I've treated it for pests already, but I just haven't repotted it yet. So if you follow me, you know I've got a rigid rule about new plants that enter my collection. I try to repot and do a really deep pest treatment in order to guard against pests. Okay, so let's take a look here. A very chunky mix, like really not chunky, but a really grainy mix. I knew it was a very young plant. Even when I was picking it, when I looked at the bottom, I couldn't see any roots coming out from the bottom. I could tell that this was pretty much a bunch of cuttings stuck into a pot and with the hope that they root. And that's the thing about philodendrons. They root so easily that a lot of times growers will just cut, stick them in soil and then ship them off. Because if you look at this one, this is one of the little pieces that fell off the plant. Like it's not even anything much to talk about. It's nothing. But anyways, overall it's pretty healthy. And that was my suspicion when I got it. And that's why I thought I could probably get away with sizing it down and putting it in a self-watering pot, just because I just had this inclination that it wasn't heavily rooted in here. And even in that video, in my haul video, I sort of mentioned that I was thinking about downsizing it. So not a whole lot of roots, but it's pretty healthy. The thing is that philodendron are heavy rooters. Even these vining ones, I need to learn how to pronounce this word, the heteracea. I'm probably adding way too many syllables in there. But anyways, they're great rooters, easy propagators, if that's a word. They're very easy to propagate. And so I am not worried about this at all. But like my rules are, I prefer growing new plants in my own substrate. I know my substrate. I know how my substrate behaves in my conditions. I rather do that. I also rather repot as well as a way to prevent pests. I don't have a memory of getting any pests from this nursery, like getting anything that I noticed had pests on it, but usually that's how it starts, right? You don't see anything, and then like 6 weeks later, bam, you have an outbreak of something you don't remember entering your collection. Yeah, oh, new roots, new plants coming down at the bottom. This one's upside down in here. Here's an up close of what it looks like right now. These are the roots, pretty healthy, no rot. It's looking really good. All right, I think I've done enough because any more poking and I am starting to feel snapping. I don't want to feel any roots snapping in this process. I don't want to do more harm than good with the plant, although this is an excellent rooter and I know it will recover nicely, but at the same time, I don't want to overdo it, right? All right, so I'm gonna pop this on the side and I'm just going to spray the roots with my treatment. So I like to do this with a glove just because this thing is so incredibly effective. I'm always wondering. This is horticultural oil. I'm just gonna spray it, spray the roots. I've already sprayed down the leaves of the plant, but when I go to wash it to give it like a nice thorough washing, I will also spray it down again. I've had a couple ideas regarding pots. I was thinking about putting it in this one. This is what? A 4-inch pot. It previously was in a 6-inch that was clearly too big, but the plant would have eventually grown into it. I could put it back into the 6-inch pot with my substrate, but I feel like I want to put it into self-watering just because I don't want to risk messing up the watering of such a brand new plant, right? So let's see, let's take a look at the roots in here. Aren't bad, but it's probably gonna outgrow this relatively soon. I could see why they put it in the 6-inch pot. That was a good call. 6-inch was a good call for it. It's just that the roots weren't ready for a 6-inch pot yet. So what am I going to do? I don't think I have a 6-inch self-watering pot. I just realized that I've got this one. I have no idea what size this is, but I got this from like a bunch of pots that I bought online on Amazon. I think this would be great. It's deeper as well, so I feel like it will really keep the pot from tipping over, hopefully. I don't know, but I think this is what I want to use. I could eye the roots nicely as well. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna use. This is what I wanted to use, but I do think this is a little bit too small. I think this will be a better size. I mean, I could put it right back into the pot that it came in, but honestly, I prefer clear pots. I prefer clear pots over nursery pots. So, okay. Let's get over to our other side, our potting up station. So this is it here. And here I was telling them that their 6-inch pot was way too big. I'm about to put it in something even bigger. But that's okay. Okay, so this plant is such an easygoing plant. I think we'd be just fine. Well, I can't say this plant. I do find that if this is the same sort of energy as my Brazil and my lemon lime, I think it should be fine in a little bit of soil. The mixture it came was not compacted. So that's what I've learned. No compacted roots, but at the same time, we still want a good amount of water retention. I make mixes a little bit differently for not every single plant, but for some of my plants. I make things a little bit different, right? So sometimes I have pre-mixes, like, how do I say this? I have mixes that are ready to go and I will use them. But then sometimes I actually enjoy having the ability to customize my mix. Just because I think some plants don't need a very specific custom mix. I think some plants are fine in, you know, a basic mix. I'm sure you have some plants like that. Although this plant is pretty new to me, just because of the reputation it seems to have with a lot of you. It seems to grow nicely for a lot of you. A lot of you mention how easy it is. We'll see what it's like for me. Which plant was it? My Brazil was a little bit tricky in the beginning, but I think it was only because I didn't give it enough light, especially after I repotted it. So this is sort of a motto I'm gonna go by for this new plant. I'm gonna give it high amounts of light, give it great treatment until it sort of acclimates, and then I'm going to start moving it around afterwards. I think I've already made this just a little bit chunkier than I intended. It's a lot of perlite in here, but that's okay. I will just backfill with pure soil afterwards. This soil is from the same nursery that I bought the plants from. They have a very airy mix. I think their mix is safe to use straight out of the packet, straight out of the bag. It is chunkier than your typical Miracle Grow mix, and I love that about it. I feel very safe putting my plants directly in it, but I wouldn't do it just because I prefer my plants. I prefer to add a little bit of buffer into my plants by adding some extra perlite into it, right? Just because I just like adding a little bit of insurance. Meaning I want to reduce the risk of overwatering. Perlite helps the soil to drain a lot better and dry out a little bit faster. I think that we are overall not too bad. If you look at the sides of this hair, it's pretty chunky. We have a lot of aeration in here, lots of perlite in here. If you take a look, lots and lots of perlite to make this a little bit more chunky. And then I sort of backfill with a little extra soil just to make sure it's not too chunky. So this is what it looks like. All right, so that's pretty good. I'm actually tempted to cut a few pieces and stick them back in, but it's still pretty small. I'm excited for it to get as big and as lush as my Brazil, but patience. My Brazil started off really small, and I just kept cutting and putting back in, cutting and putting back in, and that's how we got to where we are now. It just needs a thorough soaking through and we're good. An Anthurium Queen of Hearts, another one that I got recently. Let's take a look. All right, so we've got a big chunk of something in here. I just watered this. Wow, so this, for starters, this mix is super water retentive, very water retentive. And wow, it does have a little bit of stress on this leaf, which I knew when I got it. I did notice that, a little bit of maybe shock or overwatering. It could have been heat, not sure what this could have been, but I don't know. So I'm already on the lookout, but I picked this plant because it had 3 plants in it. So if you look closely, whoops, you'll see that I'm making a mess, and you might be able to spot some suckers in there. Let's see, keep an eye out. Wow, fertilizer everywhere. Those little green pellets. Definitely going to have to vacuum in here afterwards. And let's see, man, I mean, I know that Anthurium are thirsty plants, but woo, that's like mud. That's super muddy. I don't think this plant has been living in this pot for very long. I think it recently got moved in here. Everything is just literally falling off. It literally just fell off, and you can see precisely where it lived as a plug. So if you look right here, see how perfectly circular this is. Either, oh yeah, there we go. There, it has that spongy thing that I really don't like. Oh, go. It's a nightmare to take this sponge off. The roots look really nice. nice and white, like very healthy roots. I'm just scared of popping them as I try to take this out. Also from this nursery, and also in a plug, I got the Wendlingery. I have a video of when I got that plant and I introduced it into my collection. I unpotted it and repotted it into a new substrate, and it also had, like I mentioned, that foam that it grew in like a sponge. So anyways, that's this guy. So again, really healthy, beautiful root system. That was a big cup for this tiny plant, but again, Anthurium, it's an Anthurium, it would pop right through that super quickly. I definitely think it's one plant. Now that I look at it, it's not 3 plants, but it does have 3 growth points. So these are suckers, like she said. I mean, I think I could take a knife technically and split them up, but would they survive? No. Would I do that? No. 3 growth points, but they're still pretty baby. All right, so again, I like to treat those roots. I tell you, horticultural oil is the bomb diggity. Last time I was here, I mixed my Anthurium with my aroid mix. So it had a little bit of tree fern fiber, which was my first time using tree fern fiber, with my aroid mix. All right, so I've created a little bit of a mix here. And what did I do? I made tree fern fiber, coconut husks, some perlite, and I'm about to add some coconut coir to it, which I'm beginning to think is what the Micans, I have a feeling that's what the Micans was growing in. It was growing entirely in cocoa coir. So that could have been it. And then apparently I just had a couple leca pieces from a random place, so I just threw a bunch in here. But that's it. So it's definitely a slightly different mix than the first time I made this. It's a lot more water retentive, hopefully not too much. I'm secretly here hoping it's not too water retentive. I added some perlite before, but I think I'm gonna add some large perlite now. Oh, wow, this perlite looked so much bigger when I bought it. I just can't seem to get my hands on like the really chunky perlite. Oh no, this is pretty big. Okay, for some reason, it looked really big when I was buying it, and then just as I pulled it up on camera here, it looked a little bit smaller. I think I like this a little bit better with the chunky perlite, just to make sure we've got a little bit of extra aeration in there. Now I'm torn between putting this in a glass vessel or into a self-watering pot. I think I'm gonna put it in a self-watering pot. I'm not a huge fan of these self-watering pots. Like these ones, these diamond-shaped pots that I got some time ago, I cringe at the idea of using them for a plant that I really want to keep safe. I just feel like this pot doesn't wick up as much water as I would like it to. I'll give this a try. I'll put it in here. I'll give these pots one last try. Well, especially since I've already spent a lot of money on them. So this will be my first Anthurium in a self-watering pot. I'm just gonna pop this in here. I'm gonna try to not put it in too deep. All right. I'm doing the same thing, like saying about the nursery. This pot's so big, but let's see. I just hope this is not too retentive for it. I do see a lot of people have their Anthurium in semi-hydro. I guess they could probably behave a little similarly to Anthurium, not Anthurium, to Alocasia. I know my Alocasia love semi-hydro, like they love it because they're so thirsty. And honestly, if Anthurium are as thirsty as Alocasia are, I mean, yeah, I do think Alocasia are thirsty. Maybe I think Anthurium are even more thirsty. So it could be that if so, then semi-hydro might be even more beneficial for it. Anyways, I'm going to try not to, I'm not going to compact it in there. I did make it a lot less chunky than my previous mix. It's more water retentive than my first Anthurium mix that I made a few weeks ago, but it's definitely less water retentive than the mix that it came in, if that makes any sense. Ah, there we go. All right, I really hope that I don't regret this. It'll have to do for now. If it's a huge faux pas, you got to catch it. You got to see it. Okay, so that's plant number 2. Welcome to a brave moment that I was having. If you've been on my channel for a little while, first of all, thank you. And secondly, you would know that I struggle with the Hoya Heuchkeliana a lot. Well, I should say struggled. I've gone through many versions of this plant, trying to get the version that I have right now, trying to grow it this way. So anyways, I started with a much smaller plant from a nursery, and I got another one as a backup. It's a long story. Check out my hard Hoya video. It'll all make sense. So they've both grown beautifully for me, but we're at the point where they're growing so well, they're drying out very quickly. So I have put on my big girl pants and I've decided to pot them both together into a self-watering pot because I don't want to risk underwatering them or letting them dry out too much. So I'm trying to figure out here what direction to put the plants in because of there's an area, a spot where you have to pour the water into the self-watering pot into the reservoir. So I decided to put it on the side and then have the plants, the leaves cascade on another side, and that way I don't have to sort of go between the leaves to access the reservoir to refill it. So anyways, I'm trying to do this as delicately as possible because I do not want to touch or tamper with these roots at all. Heuchkeliana do not like their roots tampered with. So I'm taking a peek at them here as well, checking out the health, looking for pests, etc. They look good. A couple of them are less than white, but you know what? The plant looks happy. The plant's growing well, and I think we're good. It's in a very chunky mix. It's actually in the mix that it came with the first nursery that I bought it from, and that's from the Crystal Star nursery. I just doused that in my pesticide, well, not my pesticide, but in my pest spray, and that seemed to do the trick. I don't have any pests. Well, maybe never had any to begin with. Anyways, I am removing the wick from the previous self-watering pot, and I'm sad I lost one root, but that's okay. It's a small price to pay. I have lost a lot of roots doing that before, so I'm glad that it was minimal damage. Anyways, I'm gonna try to fit it in here as nicely as possible, and I'm very nervous while doing this because by tampering with my main and backup plant, I risk losing both of them. Fun. Anyways, here's my second plant, aka like I like to call it my backup plant, and it already had roots growing down into the reservoir. So I just thought, instead of just repotting one, I decided to put both together. This is in my DIY chunky mix. I left a lot of the mix from the nursery as well, but it's mostly in my DIY mix. And I didn't think that the two plants would be so full in the pot. I honestly thought I'd have a little bit more room, but in growing Heuchkeliana, or in growing Hoya, I should say, on a whole, I've noticed that Hoya like to feel snug. I've noticed when you repot Hoya, they will actually stop growing until they can feel the parameters of the vessel that they're in before they start pushing out new growth. Not every single Hoya, but a lot of them will do that. So I think this will be fine. I think it'll be fine. Anyways, I'm using my little scoop here, aka my little mic. Some of you saw this scoop in my last video in what was it, my haul video. A lot of you were very thrown off by it, but yeah, I just bought a couple of scoops because when I'd use my hands, a lot of you would say like, you need scoops, you need bonsai scoops, and I couldn't find the bonsai scoops, but there were baking scoops at the dollar store, so I used these and they work beautifully. They're the perfect size, not too big, not too small, and they're actually multiple sizes. So this is my medium size one, and then there's an even smaller one. You could see it on the right side here. But anyways, let's just take a look at this beauty. It looks so good so far. And so here I am just trying to backfill and using my fingers here and there to sort of fill in the gaps that's in the mix. That's the thing about chunky mix. It's so chunky that sometimes you really have to stick a chopstick or just get in there to make sure everything's settling in, because you don't want your gaps to be too big, because you don't want the roots to dry out too much. I was trying to avoid covering up the hole and I still ended up doing it in the end. Honestly, I didn't realize how big these two plants were until I put them in here. I mean, they're not huge. There are lots of much bigger Heuchkelianas out there, but for me, I never thought that I would ever get a Heuchkeliana to be this big. This video was taken maybe 2 weeks ago, and I'm so happy to report that it's still doing well. So yeah, that's the way it looks now. Okay, back to present day Stephanie. Whoa. Okay, I can hear crispiness. Lots of crispiness happening. Let's see the top. Ooh. Okay, so not as bad on the top as I thought it was gonna be. Not as bad. A lot of yellowing leaves still though. Wow, this thing it's lifting up a bottle. Oh my gosh, this thing is really massive. All right, I guess I shouldn't pull too much. Let's just try to deal with it like this. All right, so let's see. I'm not looking forward to this. All right, got my... Hopefully it's nothing. Hopefully it's just that I may have overwatered it. Ooh, look at that. It's pushing out some new growth points inside. But look at how many leaves I'm losing. So many leaves. And you just saw this plant. Man, so many leaves. Okay, let's just check the roots. Nothing's coming out of the base. Like, oh man, this is so depleted of soil. I just watered it. I just watered this not too long ago. Editing Stephanie here, just wanting to give a little bit of context as to what's happening here. So I was away from this plant for 3 days, well, all of my plants. And before I left, I suddenly changed the lighting this plant was getting from, I think, 11 hours to 8 hours. I put it under new grow lights, and long story short, that's what happened. And when I came back, it was losing many, many leaves. And so I think that this was happening due to shock from the sudden change in light duration. Well, that's interesting. So it is definitely not as root bound as I thought it was. I mean, it's really root bound, don't get me wrong, like it's really root bound. But it's not as bad because we still have soil up here that's not in use. But this soil could be a little bit too depleted. Oh, that's what it is. It's dry rot. It's dry rot. So it was really dry and then I watered it. Some roots are popping off. Let's see. Take a look. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. The roots aren't extremely happy. Yeah, it's dry rot. But not all of it, just a little bit of it. Yeah. Yeah, it's popping off. Oh, the roots are like popping off. It's so dry. All right, it's thirsty. So What am I gonna do? Happily, the good news is I don't have to repot it. It doesn't have enough soil. So this happens with plants sometimes. You water and you water and you water, and the soil, you lose soil, it starts to go down more and more. So I'm actually just going to add more soil to the bottom of it and then put this root ball on top. I don't even think I'm gonna loosen it. I guess I could, but the plant is already going through so much shock. I don't want to irritate it even more by messing with the root ball. So, I mean, if this was just your typical repot where I wasn't going at it because something looked wrong, then yeah, but because we're losing leaves, I'm gonna do it this way. All right, so the substrate that it's in, I'm pretty sure is this one. I could be wrong. But anyways, I'm going to put some soil straight up in here. This soil is so fluffy, I really like it. I really like it. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of perlite for some extra drainage, even if it already has perlite, because this plant is in such a low light situation. I don't want to make this too water retentive. I'm not gonna lie, I know I have ignored this plant. I have neglected this plant, and it has not repaid me according to my treatment. I deserve way worse than this, way more than this. It's been very nice to me. All right, so I've just popped it straight up in here. Like I said, I don't want to irritate those roots too much. I don't think it needs to be up-potted, like I said. I just think it needs more soil so the roots have room to grow down. And what I love is even if it's getting some bare spots in between, it's starting to reactivate itself by pushing out some new areas. I do think the ball spots are moving faster than the reactivation, if that makes any sense. But I'm gonna let it do its thing. I'm gonna let it shed all the leaves it needs to shed, and then we'll see. We had a lot of damage, but I think overall it's not too bad. The roots aren't as bad as I thought. So this is light related. I do think it's light related and a little bit of inconsistent watering, but trust me, I watered it a lot worse than this. So I do think it's light and shock. I think it's just a delayed reaction to the past couple of days. All right, so that's it. See, this exactly here is what's not my favorite part about vining plants. It's when they get big like this, they become difficult in terms of size, not in terms of care. There you go. I'm trying to reclaim some of the soil that fell out. The soil was super dry though, and I watered it twice since I got back. So, all right. A part of me wants to also start chopping the ends again and sticking them back in, because it's gotten a little bald at the top. Although you can't see it, it's not visible, but it's getting a little bald. I'm just getting greedy, yeah? All right. I'll water it from the top when I place it back up, because if I water it now, the leaves are gonna get really wet, and I don't want the wet leaves dripping on top of the grow lights. Oh yeah. Just don't get burned. I made the mistake of flipping the plant around. I flipped it the wrong way. That'll be even more shock. Of course I did. Okay. All right. Almost there. Okay, I have no idea. How? Why are all the leaves facing the other way then? Okay. Okay, wait. Okay. These leaves hook onto things so easily. Oh my goodness. Ah! All right, that's okay. Some collateral damage is expected. I just wish that was one of the retiring leaves. Not one of the few good ones left. I think I am going to have to do that chop and prop. I think I am going to have to shorten it. I think I may wait. I think I may wait for like a week or so before I do that, because I think chopping it back will also shock it. We'll send it into another round of shock. So I don't want to do that. I'm gonna wait till it reestablishes itself and then chop it. I know it, like another reasoning could be like, while I'm at it, just do it in one go. But it's too weak. I just feel like it's too weak right now. Doing that could send it over the edge. What edge? I don't know. I mean, let's be real, it's a pothos. Pothos never really croak. All right, so that's this part. Now it just needs to be watered thoroughly again. It's third watering in the past 7 days, not lying, seriously. So I'm just gonna do an initial soak, and then I'm gonna come back, let it soak in, and then I'm gonna come back in like maybe in a couple minutes or so to see if anything came out at the bottom. I don't think it would have, because I put so much new soil. It really needs a good watering through. You made it all the way to the end. You are awesome. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, you may like some of these other videos on my channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.